Hey guys, we got a fun one here. I'm with the founder of CERO Bicycles. This is Kiyoshi, and we are looking at your CERO One and kind of the original model over here. So this is a new and improved, it's a 2021, 2022 model with the belt drive, an internally geared hub, upgraded motor. But before we get into that too much, it's kind of designed, stylized after like a really famous or classic Japanese bicycle, right?
Yes, the called Mamarachi, basically Mama's bicycle.
Cool.
But very common way to explain this kind of style of bicycle. Pick up the kids, grocery shopping. But even we are saying Mamarachi, Pop does the same thing.
The Papa gets one too, huh?
Yep.
One of the things I noticed is that, it has the smaller front wheel. This is a 20-inch wheel.
Yes.
Versus 26 in the rear. Why is it smaller up front?
Yes, this is originally I brought idea from the British mail bike, cycle truck.
Yeah.
Then this is very practical for lower center gravity.
Yes.
And carrying the cargo in front.
Easier to load. You don't have to lift it as high.
Yes, exactly.
That's really great, and it's stronger. The smaller wheel diameter, the spokes are shorter. Interestingly, both of these have 32 holes, so it's the same number of spokes, but you get a lower attack angle on the rear wheel, which translates into comfort because your body weight is kind of on the saddle.
Yes.
It's a really clever design.
Thank you very much.
I love that, and there's so many accessories and stuff here. So this is an optional. This is like your bigger basket, right?
Bigger basket.
And then they have a smaller basket too that's a little bit narrower. If you get the basket, it comes with this like mesh liner and stuff, but otherwise you just have this platform rack.
That comes with it.
This one comes with it, so it comes right with the bike, and the headlights built onto the rack up there. Really nice. Here's some of the other options here. You got a Yep child seat that's added onto the back. We've got a frame lock here. This is ABIS, like cafe lock. It disables the rear wheel, and then there's a chain that you can actually plug into this and wrap it around a telephone pole or something like that. So lots of cool stuff. I'm going to jump back over here. It sounds like you started your company way back.
Yeah, on 2015 I started research. Then I find out there's a potential, and also at that time I started thinking about the environment friendly society.
Yeah.
And let's bring Mamarachi to the United States.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And an electric Mamarachi. Are they electric over in Japan now too?
Yes.
They have some of
we
that?
have electric one. It's kind of way cheaper than US market because the components, all those kind of things is cheaper.
A lot of these are Shimano components. That's a Japanese brand, right?
Yes.
Very cool.
I'm proud of it.
Yes. I mean, it's so neat, again, to talk to someone who's kind of multicultural. You speak Japanese.
Yes.
Are you from Japan originally?
Yes. Originally, yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So one of the big upgrades here is we went from this older Shimano STePs motor to the new E-6100, which offers 60 Newton meters of torque instead of 50. It's still rated 250 to 500 watt output, but it's more powerful than before.
Yes, exactly.
And it's lighter. I think it weighs like almost half a pound less, which is great. It's obviously more compact. You can see how streamlined it is in line with the frame versus before. It was a little bit boxier, and even the wiring, like I'm just noticing a lot of improvements around the bike, easy things to miss. Like look at this internal cable routing over here. There's the bezel on the left side. You're still using like the hollow spindle cranks, right? So pretty lightweight. Nice little upgrade on that. I don't know if these old ones had that. Not quite as fancy. And then this is a plastic chainring guard versus like an aluminum alloy belt guard. Of course, we're using the Gates carbon belt drive, and it's got the center track CDX, so that way it's not going to like float off track. The interesting thing is before we had a 10-speed cassette with the Shimano Dior derailleur. It had the clutch and everything, which I really like, but this hangs down fairly low. And there's definitely more maintenance. It can get kind of greasy. It can kind of snag your pants and stuff, even with that plastic guard. Now we have this really clean, quiet, very reliable belt drive system and an internally geared Shimano Nexus 5E. So this is a 5-speed. It might not have quite the same gear ratio as this older one, but you can shift at standstill, which is really nice. And it's just very clean. Again, there's no derailleur hanging down here. It does add a little bit of weight, and we were weighing this earlier. It weighs about 2 pounds more. So the weight has increased just a little bit. That might come back to the reinforcements on the frame and everything. Interestingly, I think the battery capacity is about the same at 504 watt hours. So you're still, even though what was interesting to me is your range on this, you're saying it can go up to 105 miles in one charge. Yeah, like maybe 40 to 100. It depends on how you ride and stuff, but it's still very efficient, even with kind of the same battery capacity. The weight is low and center on the bike, which is really nice. I would call this a mid-step frame, but look at how well it's reinforced. We've got this gusset right here. We've got the additional support arm right here, and having 2 tubes, angular tube. Is this hydroform?
Yes.
It is, yeah. And this up here, this is also tapered steer tube, right? So it's like 1.1 to 1.5 inches. I thought it was 1.1 inch straight, but we double checked it and stuff. Part of that is because you're using this very fancy, like, telescoping stem. It goes up and down. Can you actually show me that real quick, Kiyoshi? It's very cool. Maybe you can show me how it folds to the side too. Satori makes really good stuff. So not only do we have an adjustable angle top port, but we also have this rise. What is it, 0 to 70?
Yep.
Yeah, and then it can go sideways so that the bike can be easier to store. It's not as wide, which is really nice. So it's not technically not a folding bicycle, but it's highly adjustable. It's a little bit easier to store because, as we know, Japan, I've looked at those tiny rooms people live in, right?
Everything needs to be tight, needs to fit a tight space.
Compact.
Yeah, compact.
But you didn't really skimp. Maybe you can turn it back real quick while we're looking at this. I want to point out, so we have sort of this base portion, some additional spacers. There's sort of like some height on this adjustable angle stem, 0 to 90 degrees, so it can go up, it can go forward. Only one frame size on this bike, but what I'm trying to illustrate is that between the saddle height and then that adjustable stem, you can get this thing to fit a pretty wide range of people.
Yep.
I'm 5'9", it's feeling good to me. I would probably raise the saddle just a bit more, but for photos, I try to make the bike look kind of like normal. And I think the other thing that was cool, I was looking at these pedals that you've got. You know, the touch points are a big deal to me. So, Ergon, locking grips, half grip, twist shifter. We got the interface here that we'll go into a little bit later. Down here, we've got these like grip tape pedals. So they offer pretty good traction. They're a little bit wider. They're not gonna rust if the bike tips over or gets scratched up. The nice crank arms that I mentioned before, these are actually 175 millimeters, which is longer than I was expecting. 170 is sort of normal. So you get a pretty comfortable cadence. And then the wheel size that we talked about before, 20 inch, 26 inch, the low attack angle. Both of these have 2.15 diameter, so there's a little bit more air volume for comfort. They both have puncture protection and reflective sidewall stripes to keep you more visible. The bike comes in 2 different colors. It used to come in black and white. Now it comes in this blue and gray. It also had blue and gray before. So they kind of cut out the black and the white, kept these nice fun colors, and this really beautiful reflective sticker on the side, and there's another one on the steer tube up front. So between the reflective, stripes on the tires and the lights and stuff, which we'll get into, it's a pretty safe bike. And that's important when you're, a little bit lower. You're sitting lower to the ground because of that smaller front wheel. Some of the other really cool attention to detail, we've got some braze-ons here on the front fork. This is an aluminum alloy front fork, but there's also one here. So for me, that's like, maybe you could add some bags or some additional fenders. These are custom fenders. They're extra wide. They're plastic, front and rear. They're giving me pretty good coverage, and they've got that custom cutout, so they're not going to interfere with the belt. This really nice double leg kickstand that sort of folds and goes up towards the back. The way it's set up, it does prevent pedaling backwards completely, that you get some pedal lock, and you can see the little mark right here on the side of the stand. But it's a double leg kickstand, and that's really handy for loading maybe a kid into a rack or just loading this thing up. Look at all the braze-ons we have on this rack. We've even got a bungee loop down here, kind of a pannier blocker. So many options. 55-pound rated, 55-pound rated. They're both rated pretty high, and the bike, it used to be rated at 270-pound max load. Now it's 300. So, coming back to the frame reinforcements and everything, and look at how well that front rack is supported. It is built onto the frame. It's not like attached to the fork or anything, so it's not going to, impact your steering or potentially dump over if you park. So between the double leg kickstand, the really nice racks, and then check this out. I love what you did with that, Kiyoshi. So it's a bottle cage mount right here, and right where you could reach down and grab it, it's not going to interfere with the handlebar or anything, and it's also going to give you that nice, really clean, open step over. You're not going to snag your pants or kind of rack yourself on this. So I feel like it's really well thought out that way. There's lots of utility. For me, this is kind of like a utility light cargo bike. Very unique. One of the downsides, of course, of mounting the rack to the front like this is it's like, well, where do you put the light? You know, especially with sort of a swiveling handlebar setup like that. Well, they've mounted it down here under the rack. It can be a little bit blocked at times if you're way up high, but he's got it forward enough that it's still fairly visible. 2 LEDs, and it doesn't point where you steer, but it does kind of point where the bike is going. So, you know, it kind of do what you can. Of course, when you have a very loaded bike, maybe you're going with the kids and you got some groceries or something like that, you want to be able to stop well. So they've done a good job with that as well. We've got the Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, 3-finger levers with adjustable reach, 180 millimeter rotor up front, which is really nice. It's going to give you a little bit more surface area for dissipating heat and give you that mechanical advantage, a really big mechanical advantage over such a small wheel, 20 inches again. And then back here we have 160, and that might just be because of the crowding and stuff. I feel like it, you know, checks the box. These are both dual piston caliper, kind of gets the job done. I mentioned the wheels earlier. These are 14 gauge spokes, which are really comfortable, a little bit more flex than a 13 or a 12, and again 32 hole. They do have the reinforcement eyelets on the rims. These are double wall Alex rims, so name brand stuff. The cranks, the rims, the tires, these Schwabe, the kind of the balloon style with that green guard puncture protection I mentioned earlier. Just give you another shot of the fender. Hasn't really been rattling around a whole lot as I've been riding. I think it's connected well enough, but it is separate from the rear rack, so you could kind of remove that rear rack if you didn't feel like you were using it. You'd lose that rear light though. And this does stick out a little bit. Like this is, it doesn't go past the fender, but just keep that in mind. I've seen other lights that are mounted sort of inside the rack, and that's going to keep it from getting cracked if you have an impact on the back. You know, this is a single LED light as well. Might as well just turn those on since we're talking about it. So come up here, hold the power button on the display. This thing's awesome, transflective, pretty visible even in bright light. We hold the light button for a second here, give a little light icon. So there it is, a single LED, but it's got the light pipes, still fairly visible. And I'll show you that headlight. The headlight is really nice, fairly aimable as well. No suspension on this bike. So one of the trade-offs is like, well, you've got that smaller front wheel, you get the higher attack angle, so you might feel things a little bit more, and that's why it's nice they've got a longer handlebar, the ergonomic grips. If you wanted to improve the comfort a little bit, I think this is 30.9 millimeter seat post, 350 millimeters tall. You could replace this with a suspension post. It is going to raise your minimum saddle height by about 3 inches, so keep that in mind. But I love that he also chose Ergon for the saddle. I'm a big fan of Ergon. It fits my body really well. So one of the other considerations when you do have 2 different wheel sizes is that you're replacing the tires and the tubes. You got to get different sizes. A lot of times they're sold in pairs, so it's a little bit extra. But I like that they're from the same brand and you've got the same width, that 2.15. The bike costs $37.99 now. That's about $400 more than 2017 when I looked at that one, which for me, you know, for a nicer motor and a belt drive and an internally geared hub, I feel like that's very reasonable. Plus inflation, like, I'm kind of surprised that it's still at this price for such a unique bike. I mean, there's nothing else like this on the market that I've seen. And the other thing is it weighs 58.2 pounds, you know, versus that 56.5-ish pounds. Battery weight here is 5.7 pounds, and the motor is 6.35 versus about 7 pounds over there. So it's kind of interesting, you know, the parts that weigh a little bit more versus the parts that are sort of upgraded and refined. Okay, I got to show you guys the battery pack over here. We got those Abus key-to-like keys. Love that. Kind of unlock the battery. It is spring-loaded, and then it slides out to the side. Really nice design. I like this. I mean, Shimano's done a really good job. There's 5 little lights here that show you roughly how full it is if it's off the bike. I do recommend storing this in a cool, dry location. You don't want to drop it, of course, and keeping it at like roughly at least 50% charged if you're not using it. If it gets all the way down to 0 and it stays there, that can be kind of hard on the cells. So the stats for this are 36 volt, 14 amp hour. It's the 504 watt hours like we had before. I think it has been refined a little bit. One thing I really like is there's the charging port. It's on the side of the pack. It's not built into the mount. And before, you needed like a dongle adapter for the charger, and it was a lot bigger. So for me, this battery is all the great things from before and then a few extras. You can also just click it right on. We don't even need the key on the bike. You can just go click and it secures right to the bike. I love that. Again, here's the charging port on the side of that thing. Seals really well. It is a little bit exposed. The crank arm kind of, it gets close to it and it could bump it out of position. I talk about this a lot when I'm looking at the Bosch bikes and stuff. A lot of bikes have the charging port down low like that. It'd be nice if it was up higher, but for a bike that's kind of unique and compact, at least you don't need the dongle. So here's the new charger. Only weighs 1.4 pounds. The older one was really big and it weighed like 2.2 pounds. So that's great, but it is a little bit slower. It's 1.8 amps now. And that means it could take like 7 hours to fully charge this thing. It's 42 volts. Does have a removable wall side. Here's the plug that goes into the side of the battery. When I say removable wall side, what I mean is, I can take this side out and now it gets a lot more compact. It almost seems like there's a little pocket up here just for the charger. Kiyoshi, what's this for? There's a little, pocket on the front of the...
Put the, cell phone, wallet, or key.
Oh yeah, cell phones and stuff. That makes sense. So it's not like bumping around or getting smashed. That's a smart little upgrade. So yeah, between the charger being a little bit smaller stuff, it takes a little bit longer, but let's say you want to go really far and you just buy a second battery pack. It's just smooth, it's compact. It's like, I feel like that would easily fit in the front basket or pannier or something like that. So I'm happy with that. And I do like the Shimano drive system, the E-6100. It's quiet, it's efficient, it's measuring, the pedal cadence, pedal torque, and the rear wheel speed. You can see the little sensor right here, and then there's a magnet floating around. There it is on one of the spokes. So, kind of typical setup, and I might as well highlight, up here we have 100mm hub spacing, 9mm quick release skewer in the back, 135 with a 12mm keyed axle for the Shimano, the E5. And I think this is an e-bike specific internally geared hub, right? From Shimano, because it's E, so it's like extra torque rated. 60 torques is not like the highest. These days we have 85 Newton meters from Bosch, 90 Newton meters from Broza and stuff, but that's still more force. So it's great that this is e-bike rated. It's nice to see, and this one's pretty well secured with these little nuts. The saddle clamp here also secured with little hex up here. Because it's quick release, one of the things that you guys sell is an optional, it's like an ABIS nut fix. Yeah, you got it for both of those. So for the saddle clamp and also the front wheel, in addition to that chain I was talking about, that's kind of cool. I feel like, people might be using this in an urban environment if you're commuting and stuff and you want to make sure no one just takes your front wheel. Yep. Or something like that. And next we're going to talk about the display. That has been upgraded since last time. Again, I think this one was transflective. It was removable, but it had a different button pad. This new one's just a little bit sleeker. The bike doesn't come with this cell phone holder, does it, Kiyoshi? No, just kind of nice if you use the app. So one of the cool things is this one, I think it uses Bluetooth Low Energy, and there are two apps. One is like the eTube app where you can fine tune the motor characteristics, and then there's the eTube Ride app that it's more like a big display. So if you're riding, you could use your mobile device for that. I didn't see, there's no like micro USB charging ports on this anywhere though. It's okay, so keep that in mind. If you're using your cell phone here or something, you're just gonna have to run off the battery. You can't tap into the e-bike battery. So here's the display taken off STePs E-6100. Kind of matches the motor naming. It's very lightweight, but if you do this, it kind of disables the bike. So coming back to security, that's a neat feature. And then this isn't going to get scratched up at the bike rack or potentially stolen. You'd almost want to take this off every time when you go inside. Press the power button for a second. It comes on very quickly and has the kind of grayscale look, so it's not using as much energy. Up here we've got the lights. They're still turned on from last time. A clock, a little battery infographic, just like we had on the top of the battery itself. 5 dots, so it's 20% increments. Current speed in miles per hour. Assist level, we're off right now, and we use the sort of up and down buttons over here to navigate through that. As I do, you're going to see this range chart dynamically update. So like we were saying, it's estimating 103 miles with this fully charged battery, and we rode up here. We rode up a hill, so I mean, it's really amazing to see that it actually can go 100-ish miles with eco. Of course, you're not getting a whole lot of support at that level, but still impressive. High 51 miles, that's a lot. So very, very cool. I'm gonna go ahead and press this center button over here, and it's gonna cycle through some of the other readouts. So now we have manual at time, 2 hours, 35 minutes. I think that's like ride time. Average, oh, and I think manuals, it's the assist level that we're in. So down here, average speed, max speed, cadence, distance, odometer, and then range. So this is like the single menu range. Before we had that like kind of a chart, it showed different range estimates based on the level of assist. This one, it's telling us the level we're in. So we're in off. And then if I press up, We go to Eco, and then range goes to 103 like we saw, normal 72, and high 51. And then I think if you try to go above that, see them, it's telling you, nope, you're at the top. That's it. You're all the way up there. So that's kind of it. That's the display. Notice that there's a black background right now with white sort of lettering and stuff. So it blends in a little bit. It's not super bright, high contrast. This is backlit, right, Kiyoshi? So at night and stuff, if you have the black background, it's not going to ruin your night vision. But let's go into the settings. This has some of the coolest settings I've seen. If we hold the sort of the menu button over here, just takes us right to settings. It's not real confusing. I love how there's enough dedicated buttons here that, you know, there's the light button. I think this is the menu button again. And then on, off, up, down. It's like there's enough buttons around. One thing I haven't messed with is walk mode. Does this have a walk mode? You just hold the down button for a minute? Yeah, we'll experiment with that, but it's really nice that the bike can push itself because it is still, you know, 58 pounds, and that's without any gear in it. So this is the menu again. We have clear, kind of clears the trip settings and stuff. Set the clock, start mode, so you can determine what mode you want to start in, backlight, brightness, beep. So we can turn the beeping off, which is kind of cool. Units, so kilometers or miles per hour. Language, font color. So font color is what I was talking about. We can invert it and say, oh, let's have the font be black and the background be white. Look at how much brighter that is. It's a very different look. I'm a fan of this. It's the white lettering. Adjust, shifting advice, shift timing, display speed, exit. So lots of cool readouts on here. You can't really adjust the top speed on this. This is a class 1 electric bike, up to 20 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour. So it's sort of the most permissible e-bike. You could take this on most trails and paths and stuff, and it's going to be okay in most cases. So I think that's about it. We've gone through. So I want to see what this looks like with someone riding on it, and it's fun to show the third person. So Kiyoshi's going to hop on and just go around a little bit. Look at that headlight. I'm a big fan. Like the 2 LED design. Good choice. Go for it. There he goes. Really quiet too. The fenders aren't rattling or anything. Give me a ride by. Oh yeah. Shifting the gears. There he goes. It's got a good turning radius. Pretty quiet. Pretty quiet. Do you mind if I take it for a spin? Yep. Beautiful. Very nice, my friend. Okay, so I'm hopping on this thing. Kiyoshi left it in high for me, so that's nice. Just turn around, and because it does measure pedal torque, what's neat is that even in high, if you're not pedaling very hard, it doesn't really activate that much. And so it's a very dynamic. Over here we have a hill, so I wanted to show that. Like to do the no hands test a little bit squirrelier because it's the smaller wheel diameter up front, but still handles pretty well, especially with that front rack. Climbing a hill at 16 miles per hour, one-handed, with the saddle too low, not too bad. So again, props to Shimano. I feel like everything about the motor, the battery, the charger, the plug and everything is really nice. I wish the charger went a little faster, but I'd rather have a small charger, to be honest with you. Very nice. A lot of times these cargo bikes with the big baskets and stuff, they can get speed wobble and they can kind of tip side to side. This one feels pretty comfortable, and it's actually pretty lightweight. It's not super long. Back at the side, I measure all the specs, so like the length, the width, the height, the standover, minimum saddle height, even the wheelbase, so you can figure out if this will fit on your car rack and stuff. You know, it is a little bit wider, but with the folding handlebar feature, that's pretty cool. Do you mind if I hop on the old one?
Yeah.
Sweet. Great job with the brakes. Really smooth. And then, yeah, can you sew the kickstand real quick, Kiyoshi? Yeah, that nice splayed design. Really stable. I noticed there's not a lot of the frame flex. You know, I got up before when I was riding without filming and trying to shake it and flex it, and yeah, it's feeling good. You know, that's most bikes that do have a front rack, they don't offer this much weight support. Like 55 pounds is pretty awesome. So here we go. I think this is, instead of the E6100, this is the 6050. And yeah, nice. We boot it up. Let's do the same thing. We'll just take it up to high. And oh, the other one, it had a bell too, so we haven't lost that. The button pad and stuff, yeah, the new one's just kind of shaped, curved a little bit more. Yeah, noticeably louder on the older motor. I remember at the time still thinking like that was decent, because there are a lot of loud internally geared motors in the e-bike space, especially when you're trying to get that extra power. And this is an older bike, so it might have picked up a little bit of noise. I have reviewed, like, I think it might have been this exact bike way back in 2017, so you can compare the two models. The name is the same, still called it the CERO One. When are we going to get the CERO Two, Kiyoshi?
I'm planning on it.
Someday. It's in the works, huh? Why did you name it the One?
One is my first model, and the name of CERO is zero emission.
Yeah.
Then that's the CERO means Spanish by zero. Yeah. That's,
oh, it means zero. Yeah. Yeah. It's a neat. It's a neat name. I feel like you've done a good job. Interesting to see the older one had the quick release front and rear. So you're only internally geared hubs and belt drives now. Like this is the only model you offer. You got the two colors.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize how nice it is to have, you know, fenders and lights and everything. These are bikes that you could ride at day, at night. You could commute with it. We're at like daylight savings time, so it's getting dark earlier, and the safety thing is such a big deal for me, especially on a bike that is a little bit, you know, it's a little bit lower to the ground. That makes it easier to load, easier to mount and stabilize, but you want to be seen. So I'm actually wearing a helmet that has a light kind of built into the back and things like that. I guess I want to emphasize that, and I think it's cool that you picked the fun colors now. So you got rid of the black and the white,
yeah,
but you kept the gray and the blue. It sounds like they're fairly even. Like people kind of, you know, those were the favorites.
Yeah, black, gray. Used to blue is the most famous color, but now it's gray is more popular than blue. Huh. But both colors very, very popular.
We got some gray right here, Kiyoshi. Oh my gosh, maybe me too. That's awesome. Well, yeah, it's fun to hear about that. And then you're based down there in Santa Monica. Where do people buy this? They go to your website? Or?
Yeah, people live close by from my showroom. Just come to our showroom and do the test ride. And other than that, just check out our website. Yeah. And there's a shopping, you know, function in the website.
E-commerce.
E-commerce.
There
yeah,
it is.
That's what way to say old school. But,
you know, it's funny you say this too, because you have a really good warranty. It's like 2-year comprehensive,
2 years,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because of the Shimano stuff. It's really well made, right?
And call us anytime if you have a question. I can answer as much as we can. And yeah.
Just gonna take a little neighborhood cruise to close this out. Guys, I hope this has helped you. You know, I enjoy looking at these bikes. I think this is sort of a unique one, pretty special. Awesome to get to hang out with the designer, the founder. Kiyoshi drove up from Los Angeles all the way to Vancouver to make this possible, which is really special. Back at the site, I've got a nice comparison tool, so you could look at these bikes back to back, but since they don't sell that older one, I guess there's not a whole lot to compare. I do have a category for other utility type e-bikes, and there's a forum, so you can look at that and see what actual owners have had to say about the bikes. Share your opinions. Again, I try to be as objective as possible. I try to measure everything so you can come to your own conclusions. Keep in mind that the rattling you're hearing is the battery charger, it's not the bike. Yeah, for the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Love you guys, ride safe. We'll see you on the next one.